Gemini Man is a new action sci-fi thriller from director Ang Lee. This movie stars Will Smith as a man named Henry who is the best assassin in the world. He can kill people with a bunch of special skills. There's one scene where they show earlier on where he shoots someone on a speeding bullet train. It's so fantastic what he can do, but he gets caught up in a government betrayal. They now consider him a loose end, so they try to kill him. He goes on the run, and since no one else can really match his skills because he is the best even at the age of 51, this company called Gemini, run by Clive Owen, decides, well, we copied his blood and made a clone from him, so let's just send him out to take out Henry. He has all of his gifts, and he's much younger. He should be able to take Will Smith down easily. So now the movie is Will Smith versus Will Smith, but younger. The only Ang Lee film that I have seen all the way through is Life of Pi, and I think that's a very beautiful film. I think it's wonderfully told, and I think it's very well made. But just because I have a huge love for Life of Pi doesn't mean I really went into this film with that much anticipation. Honestly, I thought this just kind of looked mediocre at best. I was watching these trailers, and nothing was really hooking with me. The premise seemed dumb because you can't really copy someone's DNA and have them have the same special skills as they have developed over their years. You can copy someone's DNA and make them look like that, but as far as how they're raised, that's going to be different unless you make it specifically exactly the same. They're not going to get the same special skills. So I already went into this movie thinking it was going to be really dumb. But after the end of the last trailer where Will Smith is like, but what if someone actually knew who we really are? I kind of thought, okay, maybe there's something else. Maybe there's some intrigue here that they're just not revealing yet. Oh well, let's just go see the movie. I kept an open mind when I went to the theater to see this, like I do with every film. I didn't see the IMAX 3D, high frame rate, 120 frames per second thing, because the closest theater near to me was a Regal, and the AMC is a little farther out, and I figured I'm not gonna go all the way just to see this movie that I'm honestly not even really all that anticipating, even if they are trying to promote this new technology. I just went to the Regal. There was a 3D showing at 10 p.m., so I just went to the 7 p.m. normal one. I can't talk about the frame rate. Sorry, it's really mixed as far as like it's really cool or it's really distracting. So I can't even really help you out there. Just, I don't know. I'd stick with regular anyways because I'm a traditionalist myself. I prefer to see things regular. I honestly prefer that over 3D any day. But honestly, after seeing the movie, I can't really see how a high frame rate that's pushing the boundaries of filmmaking technology, I don't see how that can really help this movie's overall narrative problems anyway, so there's that. Let's talk about the obvious. The crutch of this movie is the fact that it is Will Smith versus a de-aged Will Smith, and I gotta say, as someone who is skeptical about seeing movies where they are de-aging people, it looked pretty good here. There is a lot of times where they keep it in the dark, and that obviously helps because you're not getting like a bright sun image, but there's literally one scene earlier on in the film where young Will Smith is sitting in the sunlight and he's licking an ice cream cone, and I thought for sure that was a real dude. Like, the technology was so good in that one moment, I thought for sure that this was filmed like a long time ago or something. That's how good it looked. Now granted, there are still a couple times where it's not 100% perfect, and there's one scene in particular in broad daylight where it looked awful, like the worst it did in the entire film. But honestly, for the most part, they did a pretty solid job with this technology, so it's pretty impressive what they do. And alright, now that we're done talking about the crutch of the movie, let's talk about the rest of this movie. Kinda sucks. This has some of the worst writing I think I've seen in a big budget blockbuster movie in recent memory, you know? There's so many lines of exposition where people literally, as soon as they start talking, you feel like there's something unnatural to it because they're going over something from the past or they're explaining something to us, but the other person should already know it. It doesn't feel like a lived-in world with people that actually have real friendships with each other because the lines of dialogue, it's either explaining or saying corny jokes that are delivered horribly. And we'll get into that later. But what really kills it here is the exposition whenever they're explaining something or going over someone's past. It is so lazy. The way it's written is so lazy. There are certain moments where characters are going to repeat certain things over and over, just worded differently, so that they can properly explain it to the dummies in the audience, which they assume is everyone apparently. And that was really weird to hear these people say lines of dialogue that don't feel natural in the slightest. Like a movie directed by Ang Lee, this legendary filmmaker, and starring Will Smith, a guy who you'd think would, like, pick projects very carefully. Apparently not. And aside from the writing with what people are actually saying, the story itself, like I said in the beginning, it's dumb. Like I said in the beginning of this video, you can't copy someone's DNA and then you get the exact same person with the exact same skills that they have learned. That's not how that works. That's not how that works. And also, like I said earlier in the video, at the end of the last trailer, Will Smith said the line, "What if someone actually knew who we are?" And I thought, okay, maybe he's an, I don't know, alien. Maybe he's a science experiment, and that's why they have his DNA or something. I don't know, maybe it's something different other than Will Smith is a normal human being who just has special skills. In the movie, that line is changed incredibly. The way it's delivered, the way it's said, it's just, what if someone actually knew who you are? Talking about young Will Smith, basically just saying, what if someone actually knew you were a killer deep down? That's it. It's not anything else. So it still doesn't make any sense how any of this works. You can't copy someone's DNA and get the exact same skills. That's taught as you go on. DNA can give you the physical features, how you sound, but you can't give you special skills. And Clive Owen didn't even bother to give him the exact same past, so it's not like he's supposed to get to the special skills that Henry's at now. It's so dumb. And I gotta talk about Clive Owen for a second, because he's a fantastic actor and he is stuck playing a character that is so dumb, a villain that is so nonsensical. He talks a lot, and at that point you're supposed to be tricked as far as, oh, he's talking a lot and he's saying a lot of things that he's confident about, so he must be a really smart man, he must know what he's doing, he must be a real threat. But when you think about it, he's the dumbest guy around. He gets Will Smith's DNA because he's the best there ever was and makes a clone somehow, even though that doesn't make any sense. But then, I literally can't even spoil it, but then they reveal something else that they did with him in charge, and I was thinking, okay, if you did this, then what was the whole point of this? And they give him a throwaway line that's supposed to explain it, but then they start to move on really quickly so that the audience doesn't think about it. But I sat there thinking about it. I was not distracted. You can't fool me. I was like, why did you even do this in the first place? That line that you just said still doesn't explain any of this. What is this stupid bullcrap? Oh my god. So we have terribly written dialogue with terribly written and delivered exposition. We have a story so nonsensical because of the villain's overall plan and what they try to achieve to do by the end of the film. And then we have the jokes that are also terribly written. Will Smith, he is not doing anything but just playing the typical Will Smith that we know. Like, he's a charming leading guy with maybe a tragic past that they'll cover briefly but not really dive into all that much. And I got some jokes. Jokes that are so bad, they literally border on like cheesy dad jokes. I was astonished, and the way he was delivering it seemed like he was so bored. This is nothing special from him at all. His performance as Junior is really only carried because of the technology, and then you have him just playing himself as regular old Henry, and he's boring. He is a really boring character with a really boring performance. They try to give him jokes to liven it up. They try to give this whole movie jokes to liven everything up, because I think they realized, hey, this is kind of dull. But we don't want to fix anything that we've done. We just want to insert jokes here and here and here. So let's get another writer, pretty much. I feel like that's exactly what happened. And that's so lazy. Mary Elizabeth Winstead is pretty much there to be his love interest, I think. They don't even really make that all that clear. Like, there's literally moments where I thought, okay, they're building up the romance. Like, okay, Will Smith getting with someone who's like 20 years younger than him. All right, whatever. This is typical with a lot of action stars. That literally happened in Hobbs and Shaw recently. But then they try to pass off like, oh, hey, buddy, we're just buddies kind of thing. So then I was just kind of confused. Like, okay, so is she a love interest? Or is she your best bud? Or what exactly? They give her a hand-to-hand fight scene, so that was kind of cool, but I really just didn't really care for this character, which sucks, because I love Mary Elizabeth Winstead. I think she's fantastic. I love her. She's fantastic. But in this movie, they really don't give her all that much to do. A lot of the cool stuff is given to Will Smith, and Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Benedict Wong basically are just left to the side, or they're just kind of watching from afar. There's literally a moment where she's like, you see that guy that was chasing you on a motorcycle? That kind of looked like you. Do you have a son? And I was like, wait, the shot that they showed of you seeing the guy chasing after Henry was like you from afar, like you looking down on them as they zoom by, and they're going so quickly. How'd you even get a chance to even recognize that that looks like Will Smith? Like, that was so bizarre. It's just overall a very weak character, and unfortunately I gotta say the same about Benedict Wong. I will say that a positive I can add to this movie is that most of the funny jokes, when you can find them, come from him. Thank you, Benedict Wong. You gave some of the funny jokes of the movie. But overall, his character is basically just, I'm gonna give Will Smith stuff, and when I need to get out of the movie, that's it, I'm out. And that just kind of left me disappointed, because he had those like 3 jokes that he told that I was like, he's real funny. Obviously, like, he had funny jokes in Doctor Strange and Infinity War. He seems like he could be a really funny guy, and it obviously makes sense why he can deliver these comedy lines so well. But like I said, it's literally like only 3 lines that he said. And then when they need him out, he's gone, and you don't even think anything else of him, which is kind of lame. So you have a cast of characters that are either not giving it their all performance-wise and delivering the dialogue terribly, or their characters are just very underdeveloped and very underwritten. You have villains that are so dumb yet so confident about what they're doing that it just completely took me out of it. I had no tension throughout this thing. There's CGI moments that are excellent, but then there's times where the de-aging is a little wonky, but then there's literally times where it looks like they're standing in front of a green screen for no reason. Or the motorcycle thing, it looks like completely obvious CGI at that part. You have dialogue that just explains everything, doesn't really get you invested, horrible exposition, and really corny jokes. The one thing that can save this movie, Ang Lee, please, is the action sequences. Please. Is that a saving grace of this film? For one sequence initially, where the young Will Smith first chases after Will Smith, where it's just him on the rooftops and Henry is like running along the grounds and he's trying to get to cover and they're kind of firing at each other. At first I was like, this is actually really well done. And they're doing a really fantastic job of keeping the suspense up, because you're not seeing exactly where the young Henry is, and he's like a stealthy ninja. He can come out of nowhere. They're doing a really good job here, but then that escalates to, well, now we're gonna ride these motorcycles down the streets, and there's gonna be like shooting at each other, like letting these motorcycles fly off, try to hit each other, and then there's young Will Smith literally smacking older Will Smith in the face with a motorcycle. He's not dead. He still gets up, and there's literally a part where he's on the ground after getting the feet swept off from under him. The young Will Smith is coming to get him again, but he does like a Matrix jump up in slow-mo, like, oh, it's so dumb. And honestly, I heard a lot of people talking about, like, that was a really cool moment in the film, and I'm like, that's so stupid, though. Like, I know this movie is a sci-fi, I know this is a fiction, I know this isn't based on a true story, but they're doing stuff that's even more ridiculous than what they were doing before this action scene that they don't really do ever again. There's a lot of hand-to-hand fights that are really too close up, and I just didn't care enough about the characters to get invested in them. There's a moment where young Will Smith and older Will Smith are fighting each other, and it's at that moment where, even though the scene was dark enough, you could kind of tell that the young Will Smith was looking pretty CGI. Mary Elizabeth Winstead is in this scene, basically to be the lighting person. Eventually, she picks up the gun and is like, all right, here's the light. I'm not going to shoot at young Will Smith, even though I have no motivation not to. Just old Will Smith tells me not to. I'm just going to stand here. And that's the thing also. There are certain moments where you don't understand the motivation of the characters in these action scenes. Like, they have plenty of clear shots to get young Will Smith, but for some reason they're just like, no, we can't. But it's like, why? Why can't we do... Why? I don't understand why. So honestly, I really couldn't get invested with any of the action sequences aside from the one that I just mentioned, and even that eventually just turned into nonsense. Near the end finale bit, there's a moment where Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Will Smith are like hiding behind this wall in like this store or something, and Will Smith looks up and there's a guy with like this big gun that's gonna like rapid fire, like that. And they kind of make eye contact. The shooter and Will Smith kind of see each other, and Will Smith gets down behind the wall. And the guy, instead of pointing his gun at this wall and just shooting at them for like 5 seconds and being like, all right, they're good, because it's that powerful, it will, any gun, but that one especially, will go through that wall and hit them, turn them into nothing but like just blood and guts. Instead, he's like, all right, I see you, Will Smith. Instead, I'm gonna shoot above you. And there's literally only like 2 bullets that go in between Will Smith and Mary Elizabeth Winstead on that wall. And it's only after when Will Smith goes, get down, let's start crawling, that's when the bullets start kind of flying where they were. And it's like, bro, wouldn't it be much better if Will Smith saw the guy, and the guy saw him, and Will Smith was like, quick, go over there, crawl now! And he pushes Mary Elizabeth Winstead over there, they're staying low, they're crawling on like both sides of the store. And that guy shoots where they were, sees that they're gone, and it's like, all right, I'm gonna get the whole store now. Wouldn't that be more suspenseful? Wouldn't that make more sense? Wouldn't it be like, okay, they're separated, they're not together, and like, I don't know if the bullet's gonna hit them or not, I don't know what's happening. Instead, it's just, we're gonna stay behind this wall and not get hit, even though the guy knows that we're sitting right here. They didn't think anything through. Also, in this finale, they throw in something that makes the story not make any more sense, but also just makes it look really bad visually. And I was just completely thrown out. Like, what is this supposed to even be right now? And then the last 5 minutes of the movie, it turns into just like a wacky sitcom kind of ending. And it kind of reminded me of like a season finale ending, and I kind of thought to myself, what if this was developed as like a limited series or something that could spawn like multiple different seasons about something? And I kind of thought it over and like, well, that would make it honestly a little better. We could get more investment with these characters that we don't have prior. We can get more than just they say something and we're just supposed to buy it. We can actually live with these people, get invested in the world. Instead, everything's so rushed and everything's so corny that I don't want to be invested in this world. I don't want to be here. Maybe the high frame rate saved it for some people. Maybe that just made the movie worse for some people. Nonetheless, I thought this movie was really poorly done, and I think it could have been much better if just developed differently. I don't know if it was the creative people involved with making this film, or if it was just this shouldn't have been a film even. I don't know how to really properly explain what they should have done, but watching this finished product unfold was just kind of abysmal after a while. I'm gonna give Gemini Man a D+. The cast I didn't think really saved this thing as much as I respect a lot of people involved with this project. The dialogue is just too poorly written to save anything. The story is too dumb for me to be invested in, and when certain things happen later on that are supposed to be a twist, or when they're supposed to give this big message, they undercut that with something incredibly stupid as well. Despite some jokes told by Benedict Wong, despite that one action sequence beforehand, and despite the obviously impressive de-aging that they're able to do for the most part, I can't really recommend this film. I don't want anyone to really go see this because it is such a great example of poor screenwriting. But if you've seen Gemini Man, leave in the comments below what you thought of it, and as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.